Great job, guys.
Thanks, Coach.
Yeah, we're obviously getting through week 4, so still working on a lot. Really fast preseason. You know, we got back, first day of practice was the 7th, and then you're scrimmaging on the 18th. So very short preseason. So you're trying to balance getting the guys in shape, putting in all of your sets, getting the fundamentals, but also keeping guys healthy. So there's a lot, and you're trying to find that sweet spot. So we're making progress. You know, we've had some good days. We've had some days where, you know, maybe weren't quite as strong, but I think everybody is. But the guys are working hard. It's a very selfless group. We have good leadership. I think we have good athletes. We probably don't have maybe a Jared Bernhardt per se, where there's a marquee guy, but I don't think we necessarily need one to be successful here. The way we play, whether it's offense, defense, or anywhere in between, if we have a group of 10 guys on the field at that point, they're all working together. They're selfless, they're athletic, they play smart, and they stick together. There's a lot that we can do, and that's really the goal this year, is just try to make sure that we be our best. Pretty simple. So it's nice to be able to kind of fall back on that every day.
You've got to be proud as we sit here with your players and leaders, and all they say is Richmond, right? That's where not last year. They don't care about that. I was hoping for a little more about last year, but that's fine. But you got to feel good about that, right? I mean, because that's the message you clearly are sending with them. Like, that doesn't matter. Yeah. It's only about what happens this coming weekend.
Yeah, and Daniel said it, like, if you're going to say anything about last year, we didn't finish the job. We fell short of a number of our goals. So if you're going to think about last year, hopefully it's motivation to be better, be more consistent. And so that's the goal. Obviously, what's great about college athletics is you're turning over about a quarter of your roster every year. And it's great to see these guys here. You know, Logan had been here the years before. You know, seeing those guys 4 years ago, seeing them now. A big part of it for us is just seeing that development, not only as a player, but as people and students. And see those guys just composure and be able to just kind of talk is pretty cool. And that's something that you get excited about every year. This team is going to be different. We'll have different challenges, but it keeps you young. It challenges your staff to try to figure out what does this team do best, and pick schemes and combinations that hopefully bring out the best in them. And we're still working on it. I think we'll start at a certain place, but we'll be tweaking that all year. Certainly last year at the end, there were a lot of changes we made. I think necessary changes to kind of make that run. And to me, it showed a lot of selflessness to the guys and a lot of flexibility by them to be able to make those changes.
When you have a generational Fogo like Luke, who's going to take that role, and how do you change things without having a Luke Weirman on the field?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Luke did a great job for us. And I think Luke would be the first to tell you that, you know, the guys that came before him, Justin Shockey and some of those guys, really got him ready. And I think these guys that are now waiting for their opportunity, much like at other positions, again, people graduate, and we'll always graduate good players, but you have guys that have been waiting for their opportunity. So our 4-man group, I think those guys are looking forward for their opportunity. To expect them to pick up where Luke left off would be unfair and unrealistic, but we have high hopes for those guys. I think one of the values of having a guy like Luke, you know, Shea Kiefler's a senior now, is the Ohio Player of the Year. I had 3 years with Luke. Got to go against him every day, got to see him prepare, got to see his practice habits, his off-the-field habits. So I think, you know, you kind of see a guy like that, you're around him, but you have to take every face-off. It's going to help you. So we have high hopes. Shea is a senior that's done very well in our preseason scrimmages. Sean Creeder's has been another guy that's done a really good job for us. I think he was the New Jersey Midfielder of the Year as a senior. A guy that I think he scored 50 goals his senior year, so he played man up, faced off, so he's got good ball skills. He's a really good face-off guy. Mitch Lloyd was a high school All-American, again, a guy that played the field above and beyond facing off. And Jonah Carey has been a really bright spot for us. He was the Offensive Player of the Year in Section 5 in Western New York. And Another guy that the way faceoffs are now, you need a good athlete that can pick up ground balls, that can navigate pressure, and I feel like all of those guys can do that. So we'll have our hands full. We are facing a pretty darn good one, veteran guy this weekend. So we always look at faceoffs as 3-on-3, but also 10-on-10. So our wing play is going to be important. Tim Obransky does an awesome job with our faceoff guys. So a lot of work to do this week, but I think we are making a lot of progress.
What are you seeing out of Peter Lake so far? Yeah, as a freshman coming in, and with so many transfers, and he had a lot of returners too, and what kind of role he might have, but given his backstory and the challenges that he's overcome to get to this point, remarkable.
Remarkable story, and if you haven't heard Pete Lake's story, it's just, definitely something to look into. You can even just Google search it. But yeah, Pete, we have high hopes. He's done a good job, I think, early on in the fall, like all of our freshmen. It's happening pretty fast, but what we've seen this spring is it's really slowing down. So he's played a lot, and I think when you play in the MIAA, there's so many good players not only on your team, but the guys you're playing against every day. Those schedules are really tough. They get your transition maybe a little bit better coming in just because you're so used to competing every day. So I think Pete, his future is super bright. We have a lot of confidence in him.
Last year there were just 2 freshmen that ended up getting in-game minutes for your team. Aside from Peter, with the rest of the class, are there any freshmen that have notably stood out to you?
Yeah, I think Jonah certainly is a guy that, again, he just seems unfazed. He's just one of those guys who gets out there. Sometimes you can read body language, and you can tell when the guy is nervous, but he has not been nervous. It's really been great to see. Johnny Gardner's done a good job. Spencer Ford's played well. John Draley, among others. So we really like that class. Those guys, I think, their future's bright here.
What went into finally giving Logan the number 1 jersey?
Yeah, I was just mentioning before I got here, I was on with Patrick Stevens and Glenn Clark, and it definitely needed to play itself out for a couple reasons. Really, the backstory was after last year, Logan finished last year, but he had surgery on his hand, and he played through it last year, but it bothered him. So with that injury, he really couldn't play for about 3 months, and his knee still was bothering him, so he had a cleanup on his knee, the one he tore a couple years ago. So he didn't play a lot. So when a guy doesn't play, it provides opportunities, and Brian Ruppel has been outstanding. And so we had our alumni scrimmage, played well there. We scrimmaged St. Joe's and Lehigh up at Springfield High School. He played well there. He played very well against Cornell, and Logan got a little bit of time in that game, but Brian played so well, we had to let this thing play out, and we're comfortable with either guy, but we didn't know who was starting until really 2 weeks ago. We made a decision at Duke, at least to start that way, but Brian Ruppel is probably the reason why it took so long. So we felt like we owed it to our culture, but to Brian to see how things go. And we always tell the guys, what you do the year before doesn't carry over. It doesn't in the real world when you have your job. Your boss isn't going to let you sit on what your sales numbers were. It's about proving yourself again. And Brian really took that to heart and was really, really good. So we had to let this play out. And I do think, given the last 2 scrimmages, Logan's been great. So it just made a lot of sense. He's been here a little bit. So I think he can handle that number pretty well.
Looking at Richmond this Saturday, what concerns you about the Spiders? What were going to be some of the keys for you guys?
Yeah, everything. Veteran face-off guy and an All-American goalie. So you're starting 2 positions that you want to be strong at. So starting there, a team that I think they've played in their conference championship game 10 straight years. So you're talking about a very consistent program, a culture of success. They lost 3 marquee offensive guys. One guy's playing with Coach Bernhardt with the Outlaws, one's playing at Duke, and the other guy was an All-American. But the rest of that group is back and they're experienced. They've returned a lot of guys. Outside of that, they're kind of like their 9 of their top 12 are back. Dan Schmidty does a great job with their offense. Coach Richards does a really good job with their defense. They turn a couple all-league guys down there. They got a couple guys out of the portal, so they'll be well coached. They're athletic. They don't beat themselves. We played them 4 times, 3 overtime games, or 3 one-goal games. So we're going to have our hands full, and our guys need to realize that. So, and I'm pretty confident they understand that. But we need to be playing our best on Saturday at noon.
First month of the season, what questions do you feel need to be answered that can only be answered in February? What are you looking to learn?
With this group, I think we've been trying to figure out, certainly defensively, we have a little bit more of a known style of how we want to play. We certainly will tweak it a little bit, but our system we've been running for a long time here. We'll vary it a little bit here and there, but offensively, with losing a good number of guys and some guys that did a great job for us, the Ryan Syracusas of the world, the Danny Maltzes of the world, we lost some really important guys among others. So trying to figure out which combos gel best, and then what sets and looks work best. And then, you look at Urksa, you look at Spanos, they played midfield and attack last year. Where do we put them now? We got to figure out, what we do with that. And obviously, you mentioned Luke being gone, so it's a great opportunity for those guys to play. The new rules now, which I'm sure most of you know, the face-off rules have changed. If you violate, you have to sit out the next face-off, which is very different from where it used to be. So you need to have 2-3 guys, because if you ever violate, another guy has to go in. So you need to have your second, third, and fourth guys ready. And at some point guys get dinged up. So I think the way you coach and look at face-offs is unique. You can't rely on one guy anymore.
Coach, the players talked about the benefit of having some of these new transfers being leaders in their former program or natural born leaders. When you are looking for people to play for you and to represent Maryland Women's Lacrosse, why is being a leader, bringing a lot of leadership on one team, why is that something you look for?
Yeah, we for us, bringing somebody in, we definitely will look long and hard and get to know guys before we make any decisions. We bring them in, we talk about what we do, and we definitely do our homework. We talk to their coaches, people they know, family members, whatever we can find, just to make sure they're the right fit. Just because a guy's a good player doesn't mean he's necessarily a good fit. And the guys that have come in, whether they were freshmen or they were transfers, have been awesome so far. Very selfless guys, here to just help, and I think that's been their mindset. And then if they've been captains, to me, you've done more than just be a good player, right? You've had to kind of gauge the culture of your team. You've had to look out for people. You've had to figure out what is best for the team. So you look at things maybe a little bit differently versus a guy who's just scored a lot of goals. And I do think, I'm not sure exactly what those guys said, but my gut is they were pretty positive about the type of people they are and the type of teammates they are.
Yeah, they said it was such a great fit and that they enjoyed learning from the different perspectives. So.
Yeah, and sometimes the guys that come in from different programs, they make your guys appreciate some of the things that you have, and the fact that maybe you haven't done as well as you'd like, or just even some of the things, the facilities, or maybe, some of the things you get, you're like, hey, it's pretty good here. And we're very thankful. We're very lucky. We get a lot of support here. So we know how lucky we have it. And I think sometimes hearing that isn't the worst thing in the world.
I'm sure we're running out of time here, but I do want to wind back to a comment you made about remaking the way the team worked late in the season last year. Have you had to do that before? And then based on the results, is that something you feel more comfortable with if you had to do it again?
Yeah, I think, as the year goes on, we're pretty consistent with what we do every week. Like, we've had 2 scrimmages. We'll scrimmage on Saturday. Guys get Sunday off. We'll all break out into film, and then we'll have what are the things we did well, what are the things we didn't do well, and then we kind of realize we need to address the things we're not doing well, and then kind of question, all right, this is what we're doing, but would we be better maybe doing this? And then a lot of that is communication with your guys. How comfortable are you with this that we're doing? Or, do you want to be here? Is it better if we put you here? how's the chemistry with guys. So that goes all year long, because I don't think you want to just settle in and say, here's who we are. Because after the first couple games, there's film, and so people start, all right, this is what they're doing. So I do think you need to keep evolving and maybe stay ahead of the curve a little bit and have some wrinkles and have some adjustments. You don't want to be overly predictable, but you still don't want to get it too far away from, your core. I think last year was definitely a year where, listen, we were so inconsistent, and the last game of the regular season went so poorly that it was like, okay, like we need to look really hard here, and we had a little extra time, and then everything was on the table, and there were a lot of communication with our guys. Like, we love our guys. A lot of it was just like, there's no pointing the finger, but it's like, okay, we didn't play well. What can we do to set you up for success? And we went through our pregame warm-up, how we practiced, our combos, who was playing what position. We moved guys around. And then obviously sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't go as well as you'd like, but we felt like we couldn't do the same things. That would not make a lot of sense. So luckily some things gelled, and I think sometimes there's something to be said for momentum, confidence, and belief. And I think Luke getting hot was huge. Obviously you got a guy like Logan, so you got a pretty good combination there. And then, just our coaches did a really good job. Coach Bernhardt with the defense, Coach Obransky with the faceoffs, and then Coach Phipps. We made some changes and it worked out pretty well. And a credit to our guys because they put their best foot forward there.
Thank you.
Sure.